Welcome. This is a special meeting of the Darien, Connecticut Parks and Recreation Commission, December 17th, 2024, in the Town Hall Auditorium. First order of business is public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? Stan, TV 79, where should he stand so he can be heard?
Maybe if he just comes up to like the front in the center aisle there, it should help.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rob Gagliardi. I'm the chairman of the board for the nonprofit sailing program, Darien Junior Sailing Team, DJST.
Thank you. And your address?
What's that?
We need your address.
Oh, 6
Sorry.
Plymouth Lane,
Thank
Darien,
you.
Connecticut.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you guys all for all the support that the Parks Commission and Parks and Recreation Department do for DGST over the years. We couldn't survive without you, and I make a point of expressing that to all the parents and everyone that comes through our program. I'm a runner too, so I appreciate all the work you do with the beaches. I love running by Wee Beach and Pear Tree Beach, and it's just so uplifting. Being close to the sound is one of the key features of Darien that I think makes it really special. And Darien Junior Sailing Team helps us kind of take advantage of the fact that we're close to the sound and helps all the youth of our town learn to sail and get the most out of that proximity. So my family is one of hundreds that have gone through the program, and I think it teaches lots of good skills like water safety and learning to sail, which kind of helps our youth become very well-rounded young adults. So we lost a building in Sandy about 12 years ago, but despite that, we've persevered thanks to your support and the support of volunteers that kind of come out every summer to kind of help us run the program. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for your support and ask that you continue and maintain the support that you've given us over the years.
Thank you. Other individuals for public comment? Okay.
Hello, I'm Gene Collins. I live at 24 Edmund Street, and I am the treasurer, volunteer treasurer for the Darien Junior Sailing Team. And I'm here to ask you to continue and expand your support for this team, for this group. Okay, we do between 60 and 70, a little over 70 sessions during the summer. We provide employment for high school students, usually juniors and seniors, if they've taken the program. So it is not only the sailing instruction, which is, we are the only publicly supported sailing instruction on the Sound. Okay, I myself had been a member of American Yacht Club, still am for years, and this program is really a very good program to teach kids safety and sailing, and I appreciate your ongoing support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christopher Deek. I live in Milford, Connecticut, and I'm a managing director of Darien Junior Sailing and have been for 8 years. So I'm the boots on the ground. I'm the one there at the beach during the summer. I see the programs. I hear the parents' complaints and I hear the parents' accolades. I enjoy very much what I do, and when my co-workers here say that it's a good experience for the instructors, it is. Many kids start with me as 8 and 9-year-olds and come up to the program, and I employ them eventually when they get to be 15, 16 years old, and they usually age out at age 21 or 22. And it's been a learning curve for all of us over the last 8 years. It's been hard, but I said it's a good benefit. What else would I like to add? We did have trouble with Hurricane Sandy. We lost 2 boats that were stored in the garage building that was down there, and that took a long time for the program to recover from that. That happened in 2012, and it wasn't until 2017 that it basically recovered. I I expanded the program by adding 3 classes of sailboats to it down there, and I found out that the key is to get the young kids who are 8 to 11 years old in the smallest class boat, which is called an Optimist, up into the larger class boat, which is called a 420, which is what high school and colleges actually sail. In between, we stuck recently in what is called the Laser, so we can bridge them from beginner to intermediate to advanced. And at advanced, they go up to the high school, and some of them go on to college. The primary genesis of the program, though, is for them to develop a lifelong interest in sailing, so that when they get to be 35 or 40 years old, and they're with their own kids on a dock somewhere, and they say, I know how to do that. That's what we try to instill. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to us today.
Thank you. Adele?
Okay, Park.
Name, address?
Yes. Adele Coniff, RTM Park and Rec Committee Chair. I live at 8 Lee Lane. The Park and Rec Committee discussed your draft budget, your operating and capital improvements budget as it was printed at the time. I know you said you got some changes to that. So these are just general comments, points that I'm sure you folks will make yourselves, but we thought we'd like to share. On the operating, Jen's going to walk us through your finished budget in the end of January. She's kindly agreed to come to our Zoom meeting, so that's going to be cool, and we'll really understand it. So it's not a lot on the operating, but they did mention that at the last meeting, the commission discussed possibly cutting funds for junior sailing. And I just wanted you to know that some of us supported the expenditure and others did not. But it was to question exactly what the money was used for, $4,500. So. For capital improvements, some priorities and discussion points for Air Trigger Point Beach project remains a top priority of our committee. And do you have a timeline for the Darien approvals, B&C, and so forth? Also, Weed Beach Meadow and Trail Project is a priority. Bringing Cherry Lawn Pond back to good health is a priority. And for the Cherry Lawn Park and Traffic Study, some thought the program usage should be capped instead of conducting the study. Others supported the study, and some wondered if funds could be found in the fiscal year 25 budget to do the study as soon as possible. All agreed the study should be done at a peak program usage time of the year. And those are the highlights. Personally, I'd like to ask if you can explain when you get to the capital about the financial sustainability strategy, what that is. And Lori tried to explain it to me, and I kind of got it, but I'd love to hear it from you. And the other bit was personally also, as I read through the fees and possible increases. So some of them struck me as a big increase, so I'll be interested in your discussion on that, on the fees for parking, and particularly the youth league fee.
Okay, thanks, Adele. Okay, looks like we've covered everybody in the room. Is there a way we can get that noise from up there?
Just shut the
Yeah, I just, the person working in the booth, I personally don't have their number, but I contacted Jen to let them know.
Okay, don't want to.
It would take me a while, but I could just go up there and deal with it myself.
But then, does the machine just sort of record, or?
I could leave this on record, yeah.
Adele?
Is there a trick to getting in up there?
Oh, no, he closed the door.
Oh, they heard us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay! Okay, it was just really distracting. Really, I'm hearing like this stuff going on. Okay, we'll move into our agenda. You all will have noticed that we kept it very tight tonight. We're not doing minutes. We'll do minutes from last month. Do both sets next month. Not going to have all the usual reports and stuff. So, you know, I know it's a really tough time of year and people want to keep the meeting tight and get out. And that really, I think it's important we focus on the fees and the budgets for tonight. So that's why we have the abbreviated agenda. Okay, so Jen, we're going to start with the discussion about the proposed fee schedule. If you could walk people through it, you know, as Adele noticed, you are recommending what are on a percentage basis seem like high increases, although, in some cases on a dollar basis, not so much. But if you could walk us through that, please.
Sure. So just looking at this, a number of our fees have not increased in like 10 years, 10, 11 years. Some have been more recent than that. We also kind of pulled in some information from some of our surrounding communities as well. And tried to take a good look, and actually, this will be something that will be part of an ongoing process if we do our our financial sustainability strategy, which we'll explain a little bit later. So first off, I do want to say this is just a discussion. So we're having these discussions, any of the votes will happen, we're January meeting. So I'll just kind of start going off here. So for the beach permits, the beach permit fees, so they haven't been increased since 2022, so it's been about 3 years. And our cost to staff and maintain the beaches has increased by about 8% over that period of time. Part of this, when I started looking at it, I realized I felt that some corrections should be made as to how the fees were originally done. So, or not originally, but back in 2022. So at that time, the fees were done, there was a $5 increase on each of the categories. So there was $45 categories became 50, $75 categories became 80, and $100 categories became 105, right? Because there's multiple at those different levels. By doing that, one of the things is the items that were like the resident, the seniors, and some of the resident, all of the $50 ones went up by 11%. And the ones that were for, say those with a vehicle tax outside of Darien or summer residents, those actually, because you only did $5, was only a 5% increase, or I think 7% increase. So I went back and figured, well, all of them should have then gone up by 11%. If the residents were being increased by 11, I mean, they're all residents of some sort, but that should carry through. So that change was made when I made these calculations. The other piece of this is the commission voted on the fees at 50, 80, and 105, plus tax. But what is put into our active system was 53, 85, and 112. Well, 53 means you were only collecting $49.82, so we weren't even collecting the $50 because tax was $3.18 on it. We also had, so the ones that were being charged 85 were only paying $79.92 instead of 80. And the only one that was actually covering the tax cost was the 105, which went up to 112. So I made those couple of corrections and then also added the 8% increase. So that's how we came up with those numbers for those beach, for the different beach permits. I know that's probably a little confusing. One of the things I would say is the fee, that's what we decided. We said the fee that you guys vote on should say includes tax, because in the active system, when you register, the fee that's being put there is 53, but that's not what you, as a commission, voted on. So my feeling is you guys should be voting on what people are seeing. So that's how I came to those. Do you want me to, I should probably take questions on that.
So the
first versus
system
going forward.
couldn't, so in other words, we couldn't approve the fee and just list the fee as
Well,
50 plus tax? I mean, I know in the past we kind of rounded it up, but
Right. My understanding is in the past, at one point, it was 50 plus tax, and I guess on the end, when it would come out, they would pay the full fee, and somewhere along the lines, that changed. So it was not being done as an add-on. It was just, I guess when they just rounded, they probably just said, it's 53, or it's 85, whatever, not thinking that they'd actually be shortchanging.
Yeah. But can the system, so if someone goes on and buys their sticker online, can the system accommodate having a field that shows the fee and then adding the tax to that and saying this is, like, you know, if you buy a blouse online, and you know.
Right. I think that's what changed, is the system no longer did that. Because that's what it would do. It would have said, you're being charged 50, and then when you go to like check out,
It would
it would
add
have
the
then
tax.
added the tax.
Right.
But my understanding is the way the system was done, it changed, so it would know,
Okay. It
Didn't
won't
do that.
accommodate that.
I mean, I can double check
So
that.
will the system
but-
need to be changed, or just the amount will need to be changed?
No, that's what I'm saying. So what, the fee that I would propose
Yeah.
is just the fee that includes the tax. So
Okay,
I've
yeah.
already included the increase as well as the tax in that
Mm-hmm.
fee. So in some ways, it looks like it's a really huge jump because the fee that you did was 50, and now I'm saying 58. So it looks like an $8 difference, but they were really paying 53. So it's a $5 increase for what's actually being paid.
And with all the credit card transactions, is there any fee associated with that the town?
Yes, there are fees
Okay, and
associated with that.
Does the resident pay that fee, or does
As of
town?
now, that we
Town
we
pays the
incorporate
pays
that into it.
transaction
That
fee,
comes up from time to time.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so far, the town is
and it's a percentage
helpful
of,
with that.
yeah. Okay, okay.
How does each permit fee compare to Westport?
It's actually cheaper.
Or is this less expensive? Lower?
Yeah. Where's my sheet on that? That's not the right one. No, because it's over here. And again, every community has different
Sure.
scenarios, so it was really hard. Even Greenwich, honestly, Greenwich, most of their stuff, I was like, we can't even compare. It's so different that it's hard to compare. So, okay, so here, a resident is 50, Westport is 60. Seniors, well, here you get the first one for free, and then it was the 50. In Westport, nobody got it for free, but seniors were 30. When you have the non-taxpayer,
That's
Here-
okay, I just
here
wanted
it's
to know.
80, there it was
the big one.
315.
So basically, we're, with the 58, we're getting pretty close to Westport.
yeah,
Yeah, and does theirs include tax?
no, that's plus
That's
tax.
plus tax, so they're ending up at 64.
64-ish, I
Yeah,
believe.
right,
Yeah.
okay. So 64, so we've got a little,
Right.
and that's for Compo and,
That gets you into Compo, Old Mill, and Berrying Hill.
okay, all right.
Any other questions on the?
No, I feel pretty good about that. I'm almost thinking we can go a little higher now. What do you think?
I think it was the weekend fee that someone came
Well-
back to me, yeah, that seemed like if you were bringing your grandchildren and they, you know, their car, and $70 was a lot.
So, I'll get to that. So, when we look at the daily entrance fee, again, one of the things that jumped out at me was that we only have the one fee, whether it's weekend, weekday, holiday. Most of the other communities have a higher rate on the weekends. So we were proposing the 70. Westport is 70, Norwalk is 72, and Stamford is 69. Now, those, I
And do those
believe,
include
included.
tax? Yeah.
Westport includes tax, Stamford included tax,
Okay.
Norwalk, they said it was not taxed, so. So I figured we were right in line, and we
that's
needed
fair.
to have somewhat of a difference between the weekday and weekend. Because probably what's also happening is then weekends are probably the highest rate. So if people are looking for a place to go on the weekend, oh, it's cheaper in Darien, we'll come here. So it kind of is to entice people to come more on the weekday when it's less busy. So, and again, those include tax, or that's
Right.
70 and the 58 would include tax. And again, I just kept the 58 because it was the same as the permit fee, just kept that the same. Anything else on that? Okay. Boat launch, again, I was correcting the fee. Now, these do not include tax anymore. The boat launch, the daily fee, the permit went up by 11%, but again, the daily fee only went up by about 8% last time, again, because it was just like a set dollar amount. So again, I added this I made that correction and then added the same 8% that we were doing with the beach fees. Any questions on those? Tennis court fees, now those have not been changed since 2013. Those are only for reservations, and they're not staffed, obviously, you know, unlike paddle, where we have staff person there, they're not staffed. Again, it was only $5 and $6. So it's hard to, you know, we didn't want to do too much. But, so we doubled it. We thought that was fair. And then we just said, let's just make the one fee of the $12. And those are reservations where people typically would reserve a set time for, I think there's a minimum of like 4 weeks or something like that. So they would do it that way. Any questions on that? Okay. Paddle, again, that hasn't changed since 2016. What we did was we bumped up the October through March, which is the paddle season, by $5 in each category, and that's basically, it's 2% per year compounded. So again, a lot of our costs have gone up, our staffing costs and things have gone up, but again, that was, we didn't want to price too, for that, it's kind of hard, you don't want to go too high. So that's where we went with that, and then the April through October, again, that's the off-season, is also the 2% per year, and that's goes up to $12.50 and $15 instead of, what was it, $10 and $12.50, I think? Yeah. Any questions on that? Okay. Pickleball, again, that was newer, more recent, so that was was done in 2023. Again, those are at a higher rate, I think, because of the demand for them, for the number of courts. So we didn't want to change that. We're keeping that the same.
It's also an hour-and-a-half reservation versus one.
Right. So youth leagues. Youth leagues, we are seriously undercharging at $5 per participant per season. When we looked around, everything, most are at $25. And then just to, we're spending about $38 per participant on the fields. When we look at the extra, whether it's our manpower or our seed, all that kind of stuff, to maintain them. So we're really at about $38 a person. Surrounding communities are 25. Darien Board of Education is at $44 per person. So we felt it was fair to, you know, kind of go part of the way and propose the $25 per participant per season. And what they do is they give us the rosters for who's using our fields, so we know the numbers. So I base this on our fiscal year 24 for everybody. And what I would do with this is not put it into effect until fall of 2025. Because basically it's going to get passed on to the users, and registration is already taking place for some of the groups for spring. So we would want to give them plenty of opportunity, you know, plenty of knowledge and time to to take that into account.
Sorry, that goes into effect when? Next spring?
We would do it for the fall. So they're in the spring,
So next fall?
so next fall.
So whatever the spring is currently, it is?
It
and then
is,
goes-
yes, we would
okay.
still do the 5
Yeah.
this spring, and then we'd be looking at the following
Yeah, I
fall.
cannot emphasize the importance of getting that message out, because
Yes.
these are not, I know 25 doesn't look like a big number, but when
Right.
you multiply it, like, I'm thinking with my Little League, my former Little League hat on.
Right.
They have 800 kids, so
Right.
this is gonna take their bill from 7,000 to 14 per
Right.
season.
Right.
Like, that's a meaningful increase in what they need to charge.
Right,
So,
right,
like,
exactly.
be way out ahead of that one.
And
And let me ask you,
Absolutely.
and I was going to say, with Terry, being such a large, being with the Little League for so many years, do you think that that's going to impact registration in the Little League program, taking the rates up?
Maybe a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
I'm generally of the opinion of all of the leagues in town charge per kid is preposterous already, so what's it, another $20? But, I mean, you know, I know when I played basketball, it was gyms and $20. I know I sound like the chocolate bars were a nickel when I was a kid, it's kind of stuff, but like,
10
you know,
miles
but
walk to
you know,
walking to
but
school.
I think it's, yeah, I mean, it's hundreds of dollars to play youth basketball in this town and everything else, so, so I don't think it will be a meaningful thing. What I will say is, I would like to just understand, I mean, if our costs are 38 and we're charging 5, very obvious decision that we need to make there. The one thing I will say is the level of service that those leagues will expect when they're paying 5 times more, we should be prepared to deliver that. So, you know, for $5 when town couldn't be bothered to cut the grass, fine, we were paying $5. Now we're paying 25. So we should be ready to meet, people are going to expect value for a 500% increase.
Right.
So.
And I will put it out there that, you know, one of the other things could be, because it is a big jump, do you phase it? Right? We could do $10 this year, again, nothing would start until the fall, and then maybe another 10 the following year or something. If that makes it,
Yeah.
you know, just totally understanding, you know, again, there will be expectations, and
Yeah.
there's also, you know, we do have to make sure that people understand, like, this isn't, if it's passed, it's not happening right now, like,
Yeah.
you have some time. But that is something as well that, you know, you might.
Leagues
wanna
get
do.
that fields are expensive, like that
Right.
it will need to be delivered the right way, but at the end of the day, you know, certain fields that haven't been kept up as well and you're right, Board of Ed charges 40,
44.
but it's not, I think it's 40 for the year, not, I assume a charge like this.
No, I think it was per participant. This is per season.
But I think it's like, so for example, I don't think Little League pays, if a participant plays in the spring, the summer, and the fall, they don't pay $3 $40 charges for that kid, I don't think.
I'll double check that.
So
we know
we
that.
should, because this would mean 75 if we're doing it that way, a
Right.
year?
Yes. Yeah,
So-
they pay per
So we should make
season.
sure if it's per season, per year. I mean, again, your costs are your costs, and we got to figure that out, but that's non-trivial.
Is there any, what do we do for people who can't afford to pay? Is there a scholarship?
All of the youth leagues provide
Okay,
scholarship
good. Yeah,
facilities,
good.
and they'll continue to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, if our cost is 38, I mean, we do have to
Yeah.
Right.
get closer to that number, right?
Right. And I will
The
say,
other-
that's a rough number. We'll know more if we are able to
Yeah.
do the cost recovery. Like, that's going to give us a lot more detail, and it might be even more than that.
The other thing that will likely be a byproduct just for your revenue planning is, you know, at $5 a season, the leagues were perfectly happy to send over the entire roster and say, we'll pay for 800 kids. When it's 25, one of the moves that they will likely make is they will play certain leagues on Board of Ed fields and play certain leagues on town fields and say we're only going to pay for the kids that are playing on those fields. So they may say only 400 people are playing on
Right. Well, and I will.
town parks and rec fields and say we're only going to pay for 400. So.
Right, and I will say that I am aware of at least one league that doesn't give us the entire roster because they only do just what you're saying. Some kids play on Board of Ed fields and some pay for us. So they actually give us the rosters based on if they're playing for us.
Yeah.
On our fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we okay to move to another one? Okay. So the kayak rack storage did go up, and I'm under the impression that it's oversubscribed. Is that right?
Yes, we do get wait lists for that.
So you just want to keep it the same?
We were keeping it the same because it's actually on the high end. Again, although not many people had it, but I know Westport's, I think, 150.
Okay.
Something like that. So it was significant, so we didn't think we should bump that up. Really, the thing would be if we can add more, but as of right now,
More
there
racks.
are more
yeah.
racks, but
Right.
right now, we need to put that on hold until we have other projects done.
Unless a Boy Scout project.
Yeah, I was
comes up.
thinking that too.
Well, it's about space.
It's space.
It's not about
okay.
having them made, it's about the space and where do we put
Yeah.
them, and if, things get reconfigured a bit at Weed and/or Pear Tree, it might impact that, so we
Right.
have
Okay.
to,
Right.
we didn't want to add and then maybe have to take away.
Okay.
Park facility fees, again, these have not changed since 2015. Basically, the bulk of this, we basically just looked at our staff increases for time. So we did an average of 2.5%, again, over the 10 years. These are, now, just to be clear, anything that uses, like at the beach, say a picnic area or whatever, any of the guests that don't have stickers to get in, they get to come in, that includes their parking fee. So there's no additional charge for that. And then,
But for Darien residents, they're still paying that per person fee.
person, it's,
Well, in other words, if it's 151 people, that's 151 people, or
yes,
whatever, so-
yes, it's the per person, but what
Right.
I'm saying is, so if half the guests are from out of town and don't have beach emblems, we're not charging them the
Right.
58 or 70 on top of that.
It
to come
includes
in.
everyone.
They're just, they get to
Okay.
come in and use
Right,
it.
but conversely, if it was all Darien residents, they're still
They're
charging,
charged.
even though we all have.
Correct,
You're going to a party
Yes.
and you've got a sticker.
Yes.
So it's separate from the parking, it's reservation of the space.
of the space, yes, it's because you're getting the reservations, holding that space, keeping anybody else from using it. For its, So we've also received requests for just parking. So that's why we decided to break that out. And basically what we would do was for beaches in season, if they're looking to do that, we would just charge them whatever that daily rate is per vehicle. And then for the beaches in the off-season as well as all the other facilities year-round, they would just pay the facility permit fee.
That's per vehicle.
It's per vehicle, yes. Yes, I think I'll double check that, but yes, that should be parking. And then we had the large nonprofit, again, that hasn't been increased since 2019. So we were increasing that fee. Again, I think that's something that we'll get a good look at if we're going through the cost recovery piece. And again, some of those are big groups, and just so you understand, a lot of like when we say people ask for parking, they might be doing filming something. We had like photo shoots or things like that near locations, so they parked like at Weed in the overflow lot or something like that on a weekday. Obviously, if it's a weekend or something like that, we probably would deny it, but, so that's why we have that in there. And then the paddle building, it is a little hard to find everybody when you look at other places, the types of building, everybody's got different types of setups. Some are much more elaborate. So these, again, have not been raised since 2014. So again, the cost to staff it and maintain have gone up. So we were looking to move the $50 an hour to $75. And then and then the 100 to 150. Something that is somewhat comparable is Westport has a building that the hourly rate, which is only in season, is $87.50 per hour. I mean, if they do it as a block, but when you break it out, that's how that comes up.
Can I ask you a quick question before we go ahead? The large nonprofit profit, it says director discretion, is that up to you to decide? Like, is it number of employees? Is it how big the event is?
I think it depends on what types of things they're going to do at the event. You know, if it's
like the road race.
If it's a simple thing and it's just they're parking or they're doing something simple, might be one rate. And part of what I want to do is kind of get away from some of that discretion and make it a little bit more clear cut as we go along. I don't like having all that gray area, quite honestly. Like, why? You know, it seems like a lot has been sort of like, well, this one will do for this much and this one will do for that much. So we will be trying to do that as we move along. You know, but if somebody's going to do something a bit more intricate and maybe bring in tents and stage and everything else, that might be on the higher side.
Okay.
Because you just look at like kind of the impact to the facility.
And then how much the staff has to
And
be
how much
involved,
staff has to be,
probably.
right.
Yeah.
Because if they're bringing in tents or stages, I would
Right.
think some
Right.
staff members have to be there to oversee it.
Right.
To make sure there's not
Right.
damage or, you know.
So all those things would come into play.
Okay.
The paddle building, how often is it rented? Is it out of the 12, let's say, weekends that we have in season, is it 8 out of the 12? Or is it only 50% of the time, or, I don't know?
I don't know. I can't.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious.
Remember the past, Pam had shared with me from time to time, she would send a list of all of the kind of
Functions.
facilities, rentals and everything, both on-season and off-season. And as I recall, it was, I don't know that it was every weekend, but it was used quite frequently. People use it for baby showers and birthday parties, and
That's what I was
I think
wondering.
we had a welcome party for a wedding at it, so.
People are aware of that.
Yeah.
You know, we could, make them more aware that it is available, for them to rent. Yeah, I just didn't know what kind of usage we got out of it. that's all.
But and I think when Pam sent it to me, she wanted to show me, like, because, every reservation takes a fair amount of work on the part of Tamara or whoever in the office handled those in terms of getting the insurance and whatever. And, when you looked at the full list of rentals that we handle for a year, it was actually surprisingly long in terms of our facilities rentals.
So that's all I got. Unless you have other questions on that.
Okay. So everybody can, give this some thought over the next, month, and then we'll vote on this during the month of January, and then also, the point we want to have conversations, Terry, whether you want to touch base with the Little League at all, or,
Yeah, I mean, to me, that issue, I mean, I can predict what they're gonna do, but I would be like, I'm sort of thinking about, I think DGFL only uses one field. I could see them, I think they just use Holohan. I could see them bailing for that kind of money.
if there's somewhere for them to go.
I mean, DGFL is one that's very price sensitive because it's already expensive to play. So I could see them figuring out a way to just use Board of Ed under those circumstances. But the one, just a minute, I'd like to understand if our costs are $38 a year or per season that you said, and make sure.
Well, I took the cost, and I have the number from fiscal year '24, all the total number of people, and I just divided it by the total of participants that we collect money for.
Okay.
So it would be per season.
Per season, good, okay.
But Terry, if they went to the Board of Ed,
They'd pay more.
it sounds like they would pay more, so I guess that's where we have to see whether
I'm
it's.
not,
So but that's what we have to kind of,
yeah, and I'm not sure if they charge per season or per year. either.
Yeah, and I'll double check on that.
And I'm not
Okay.
sure, but I know that is a significant number.
yep.
So, and then, you know,
Okay.
Thanks for doing, there's a lot of thought in this.
yeah, no, it's
Behind
really,
each
really.
number, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that we haven't had increases in so long.
Yeah, well, and Jen and I have talked about, we've historically been on this schedule, and we've talked about, we need to get the fee review much earlier.
Thank you.
In the discussion, so we'll be doing this again in less than a year, and again, if we are successful in getting this financial sustainability program in place, we'll be doing a lot more talking around it, but to get it done so that we kind of are doing the fees and everything more at once and
And
earlier.
budget,
And
moving
budget, moving it
everything
earlier.
up earlier, because honestly, I mean, that's why you have different proposed budgets, because we're trying to finagle, you know, because it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So I think as we're planning our budget, it's important to know, you know, what the revenue side is going to be too, versus doing that afterwards.
Yeah. And this was Jen's first year doing the budget, and as you recall, Gen C asked her to combine a lot of categories, so there was just, you know, it was a even heavier lift, I would say, this year than, prior years do the combination of factors. So we want to definitely get it earlier in the cycle next year. Okay, so now we will move on to the operating budget.
Yep. So,
And just, you described that there's the two different ones.
yeah, so basically, again, what I did was we provided you with two different scenarios. The expenses are the same on both. And we just made a handful of things off of the comments that were made at the last meeting. And then it's just the proposed revenue that's different. So in the first one that just says draft, you'll see we did, based on some of the comments, went back, took a look at the revenue. Again, if you recall, I was saying that we were trying to make them a little bit more in line with, realistically, in line with what we had been taking in. So we did bump up the beach parking. I'd originally put in 410, put in 420 there. We put the pickleball up just by 1,000 to 18,000. And then the rent town hall, we're still going back and forth, but it's our understanding at the moment that we believe the Art Center will still be using the space in the Mather Center, because if you remember, I said we took out the money that we get from them, so we put that back in. That might change as we go through this process. We might learn some more, but we figured it was better to put that back in. So those are the changes on the revenue side. Again, the administration and the beach and court facilities stayed the same. The two changes that were made in the expense line were both under grounds, fields, and buildings, so it's that last grouping. In the groundskeeping services, it was putting that up to 43,000, up from the 18. And what that is, as you'll recall, we talked about the dunes.
I'm sorry, where are you?
The second page of the draft.
Okay.
Oh, the back page.
The back page, grounds, fields, and buildings expense.
All right.
So that groundskeeping services is, we added that money, it's 20, we have an estimate from a contractor to be able to come in. Obviously, it's going to be a bit extensive the first go-around to remove all that mugwort again.
Yep.
And then have them coming on a regular basis, on probably a monthly, they feel monthly would be able to keep up with it and do all the hand pulling to maintain that. And then also, there's also 5,000 in there for the additional grasses and things,
Plant
because
the
they would
bugs.
do the other two dunes that weren't done.
Good.
So it would be kind of taking all that down and putting it back in. So that's why there's that increase. We were also asking them to maintain the area in front of the gatehouse when you come in,
Yeah, it's a
because it
little
keeps getting all overgrown, so they would also maintain that while they're there as well. And then the other piece was the tree maintenance. As we know, it keeps going up. We keep getting more bills, and I've been transferred more money over already, so I think we're up to about, not all of it's been spent yet, but we're anticipating, we're up to about 28,000, I think, right now, and we're, halfway through the year. So, and again, this is stuff that is beyond staff capability, so we can do some, but if there are things that are near wires, near homes, near busy area, things like that, or they're just too large for us to take down, these are when we have to bring in outside contractors to do it. So basically, we were bumping that up from the 18,000 to 30,000. I included in there about 6,000 for new trees. That was one of the things that we were talking about, was to try to replant some of our tree canopy that we lose, that we have lost. And then also included in there 9,000 for, I think the thought we were having is to kind of focus on one park each year, and really go in and have them trim up, to try to keep the trees as healthy as possible, as long as possible, rather than we have just a lot of dead trees and we're taking down dead trees. So I think if we can prune them and maintain them as we go along, then we'll be in better shape.
And the staff would be able to do that, or that would have to be outside?
That would be
Outside?
outside.
Okay.
That's what we were pushing for, was to do that from outside.
Can I ask a rookie?
And what we can do in-house, we would do in-house.
If I may ask a rookie question on this one.
course.
Is Parks and Rec Commission, as it relates to trees in town parks, are there other overlapping, like I learned a week ago that we have a tree warden, for example. Like, are there other budget areas of people that take care of trees, or literally this is the number to take care of trees in parks in Darien?
This is within parks.
This is it.
In Darien.
Okay.
So the tree warden maintains stuff along roadways
I
and
see.
things like that, not within the
On
parks.
non-parks.
On
Right.
non-parks?
No.
It's not a lot of money.
Right.
Got it. And then the other question I have is, what kinds of things are in telecommunications?
That is our, hold on, I'll tell you.
I'll talk, I know we have internet lines, like we have internet lines at the beaches because they swipe credit card fees, so they have to have,
It's our cable vision, it's our,
Got it.
Any cameras that we have at the beach?
no, it's our fire alarms, the maintenance and everything on that,
Yep.
and maintaining it, cell phones, and cable vision at Weed and Pear Tree.
Got it.
people do go down and watch sports in the paddle hut after their game.
That's right. That's right.
So then, if you look, as I said, just the second one was just the change with taking the fees that we just talked about, and I just put those in to cover, just calculated those in. But you'll see it makes a big difference when you look at our net expenditures. If we keep as is, we're 9.37% increase, and if we do those fees, it's 1.3%.
If we did all-
If we did all
did all
of
of
them,
them.
right. And if we just do some, it'll be somewhere in between.
Somewhere in the middle.
In the fee, the revenue summary in the first section,
Yep,
which category has the youth league fees in it? Is that Parks and Rec program fees?
I'll tell you, 'cause it's going to be one that jumps up.
Rec programs, I would think would be one of
Probably
those two.
park facility permit.
Park facility permits could be-
Yeah.
I believe, yeah, it's the park facility permits, I believe, that I can do.
I think the park and rec program fees is more when, the different things that Cassie runs,
Right.
like, say, the father-daughter dance or wherever, where there's a per head charge.
Yeah, it went from 31,000 to 77. Does that sound right?
Some old school.
Yeah.
Yes, it's under the park facility permits. The one that went up to, goes up to
Right.
77?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in
so
there.
that's where you can see the difference,
Yeah.
if all the proposed fees were put through.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or
I got it.
comments? Everybody good?
I just want to make sure I understand. I know at the last meeting, we had a lot of discussion about various things, DJST, et cetera, but those were only discussions. Nothing has been
Nothing was-
reflected here. The only thing that was reflected here is really the proposed fee increases.
No, and those couple of
And
items that I
that you
mentioned, the
added.
trees and the beautification, everything
Okay.
else stayed the same, so that the funding for DJST is still in there.
Okay, okay. Just making sure I understand. All right. Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that would work.
Right.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Okay. Other questions or comments, changes?
Okay.
So we're ready to go to a vote? Okay, because we are not voting on the fee increases tonight, we essentially would need to vote on the budget that has the fees as they are. So the way Jen has proposed updating the resolution from what was in your packet, because she had it wrote proposed with or without, is resolved, the Parks and Recreation Commission approves the proposed Parks and Recreation fiscal 26 operating budget as proposed, with revenue to be adjusted as appropriate once the 2025 park fee schedule is approved. I think that language works. So if somebody wanted to make that motion?
Sure.
Amy? Second?
Second.
Cindy? Okay. In favor? Very good. Terry?
No, sorry.
Oh.
Yep, sorry.
Opposed?
I'm still, yeah, I'm good.
Okey dokey, good. All right, we'll move on to capital. And what's the new one? The capital, right?
So, yeah, so for this, you're going to want to look at the new sheet that I gave you. Where's my copy? So, so with the capital, what we noticed was that if you added them up, it wasn't adding up properly because of, it seemed like it was there were words in there in some of the spaces. But over the last 2 days, I actually received I got the dredging numbers and the McGuan railing numbers. So we put them in, so that's what's in this revised thing that you're looking at, and then it totals up properly. So what we're looking at now, under Cherry Lawn, You'll see there's actually nothing in there for the traffic study. That was something that we were talking about doing kind of off-budget cycle to try to get that done so that if we can get that approved, we can then do the data collection this spring and summer. We would pick to the peak timeframes, but that would be, otherwise we have to wait after July, bless you, till July. So that's why this is not included in here at this point in time for a department request for fiscal year 26. We do have in here the $7,000 for fixing the wall over by the overflow lot. That had been in there last year, but was not funded. So we're putting, that's in again. We have the dredging of the pond at Cherry Lawn. We did, as I said, we'd had a price, but I finally got it, including the disposal. That is $165,000 is the estimate that we were given. And basically what they would do is they would come, they would dredge it. It gets put into, what do you call them, tubes? I don't know. And it will sit there and dewater for a couple of months until the water comes out of it, and then it would be taken and disposed of.
Did you say 165?
Yep.
It was 125.
No,
Need
you're
this
not looking at the new one.
New one, yeah.
Be updated.
Okay.
And then
Does
the
that
next,
remove the tree?
no, but that we think we'll be doing ourselves.
Really? We can do that?
Sandy thinks he can do it, so we
Oh,
will.
God loves Sandy.
Oh, God love Sandy.
It's a big job.
Quick question
Yeah,
about
so
the,
we'll double check it, but he thinks, because there's not much around it, you know, it can kind of be dropped and without too much fear of hurting anything, so.
regarding the dredging, is it
Yes.
seasonal dependent? Is there a certain time of year, and what's the timeline on something like that? And then once it's dredged, what are the next steps after that? I'm just curious.
So they would dredge for there, I think they thought Cherry Lawn would be about 4 weeks. To dredge that, then it's a couple of months, probably 2 to 3 months for it to dewater. Obviously, I think we would want to try to do these things in the off-season when it's not super busy.
Yeah.
And you'll see we have Tilly is also in there, and the thought there was that would take longer to do the actual dredging because it's a larger project. That's probably about 8 weeks. And, you know, the thought was, you know, do it sort of the October, November, let it sit over the winter so that people aren't really utilizing the park that much during that time. So, you know, it would span, depending on where, probably anywhere from 3 to 6 months, I would say, depending on which location.
And then what happens after it's dredged and dewatered?
They take it and dispose of it, and then they would have to you know, we would have to bring the ground back, because obviously anything that's underneath it is going to be dead, all the grass and stuff, so then it's got to bring that back to condition. In terms of lasting, again, it all depends on conditions, but they said it could be maybe 20 years, depending on how things go. You know, so that the lifespan could be approximately 20 years before you would need to dredge it again.
Okay.
And that's the same for either one of them.
If I'm allowed to say anything, you dredged the small pond at Tilly, weren't you able to spread after it dewatered, weren't you able to spread it on ground? Just wonder if it was saving money.
So the Connecticut state rules on contaminants in silt and sediment like that have tightened up a lot. We're seeing that in bigger dredging projects in town. It used to be in the old days you could either dump it in Long Island Sound, just out in deeper waters, or actually sell it. Our sediment was deemed high enough quality for municipalities that actually needed to buy that sediment to fill in areas, and we could sell it and offset the cost of dredging. Those requirements have tightened it up such that all of this is now kind of red flag because it's either got some contaminant or fertilizers or pesticides.
And so they don't allow that anymore. And so what you have to do is pay to have it, you've got to let it sit in a parking lot or some other wide space to dry out. Basically, it's this dewatering that Jen talked about. And then they ship them to landfills out west of us. So, and that's all vastly more expensive than it used to be.
Yeah.
That's why you're seeing these gigantic
Yeah.
numbers.
And I would think especially for Tilly, because Tilly is fed from catch basins. So, you're getting all the runoff from roads and things like that. So that one, I think, would be even more so than,
Contaminants coming off of cars, I mean, all of that on the
Right.
roads, all just running right in.
All bad.
Fantastic.
All righty.
So then if we go down in from McGuan, as we talked about, we saw on our tour, the railings on the accessible ramp, which were in desperate need of repair, that's $14,500. The dredging for Tilly Pond is $381,000.
Well, while you're on Tilly Pond, I just have a real quick question for you. I know that up at Cherry Lawn, pretty much the pond is dead. There isn't anything living in there anymore. Whereas at Tilly Pond, we do have some wildlife. We have turtles in there, and
Right.
I've seen these big turtles coming
Seen the
out.
turtles.
When they dredge, how do they take that into account? Like,
They
do
basi-
you move them?
No, I don't think so. They'll be out on like a barge.
Oh, okay.
They put a little boat in, and then they just like suck it up. It just gets sucked up from a tube and it gets shot into these bags.
Okay.
They're like these big square things that they call tubes.
Right.
And that's what the sediment then sits in to dewater.
Okay.
So I think they can do it around anything. I will
Okay.
tell you, to get these prices, what happened, the vendor actually came out in a boat, put a boat in, went out, measured the different depths of sediment, and then did all the calculations and stuff. So, I mean, they're aware of the sites
Okay.
and.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they do for a living. I was just more curious as to how they protect that, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
And the timing would be before hibernation, so, and the turtles go down in the muck and sleep in there, so we'd get that done before
Before they do
they
anything.
do
So-
that, yeah.
There's some scary looking turtles.
So then if we're at Weed, stripping the paddle court, so we're on, this would be the third, I think, and
The
we're in a
third,
plan to do 3. Oh, yeah, because this, I was thinking there was an extra column.
This would be the third.
So this would be the third. This is based on the price from, I spoke with the vendor who got the bid, who just did one, and then the slight increase that they suggested for the new year. So that should be a pretty decent number. The one thing they did ask us to do was to move it from September, or, I'm sorry, we were doing it in like July and August. So they suggested moving it to April, because there's always the rush of trying to get, it's very busy, so we think we can accommodate that. I mean, we can do it either time, but that was one of the things they asked for.
But then wouldn't we miss a year?
In terms of
Budget
play,
starts
yes. you would-
July 1st, so,
No, we would still be in this year. We would just move it from the fall cycle to the spring. It would still be within the budget year.
okay. But for play. it
For
would-
play, it would be 1
You'd
year
miss a year.
behind, yes. And then we have it in there for the 2 remaining years. Obviously, the new court, we don't need to do this. And that buys us about 20 years on each court. We then have in here the Meadow and Trail project, and we put in 2.5 million.
John, are you
Yeah,
comfortable with that number? I know you talked about it last night, I watched it.
I don't expect it to be that much higher than the 1.9 million that we got, but better to get money
Right.
back. Just so you know, we talked about this at Board of Selectmen last night, and the discussion was sort of what did the board want to see next? Because there was a sense that they didn't have enough information. When the reality is we'd already presented this before, and maybe it just had been too long. So I asked them what they wanted to see. At the same time, we were also having a discussion about off-cycle capital requests and just a sense for trying to stipulate special circumstances where there would be an off-cycle request considered, and we adopted some guidelines on that. Not relevant for this discussion, but because I think what this project needs to do is go through the budget cycle again. And I think with the $2.5 million price tag on it, that we'll be assured of having a discussion around a number of people can say, yeah, we'll probably get that or less. As I said before, I reflected the recommendation of this commission, which is to stick with the original plan. There's not really a way to change that such that it makes sense for the town. So I continue to support that. And I was supportive of just including it exactly like you have here as part of the capital budget request, and put it in the meat grinder and let's see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, and I watched that section back this afternoon, and I heard that you talked about getting folks down there, and I really think we need to do that.
Yeah, so
It just seemed like maybe they weren't familiar with the current condition down there. You know, I took Jim down, Jim Palin.
Yes, and he spoke very highly of that visit.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to get this set up to where the Board of Selectmen can go see it, the Board of Finance can go see it, F&B can go see it, anybody who's got an interest, and we try to do
Yep.
that like a school tours one
Yep.
day, to get you guys down there, Weston and Sampson, Dan, somebody,
Yep.
and let's talk about that, not just about the development of the project, but to see both that and Wheat Beach, and you can see how it integrates. And that's going to make things just
Yep.
a ton better,
Yep.
if for no other reason that parking will be better.
Right.
And so I think when people see that, they'll see the value in it. Right before that likely happens, I'm going to be doing a capital presentation to the RTM and the town and everybody that's going to try to allay fears about our debt load and explain all that, because part of the reason for hesitancy on this was, well, wait a minute, and someone mentioned this at the meeting last night, they said, wait a minute, are we sure we can do projects like that when we have these other things going on? And the reality is, the answer is yes, but I want to be able to show it clearly so people can see it, which I will do. That presentation is going to take place before these deliberations, so that consideration shouldn't be a worry when that takes place.
Great, thank you. Yeah, 'cause, I mean, and we've talked about the projects, and I know you and I have talked a number of times, and they really feel like, I mean, in my mind, these are maintenance projects at this point. We're not adding really, we're not putting up a building, we're not putting in a splash pad.
Well, this is
We're not
one of the
putting-
technically simpler projects we have
Yeah,
on our
it's-
plate.
yeah.
This is grass and paths
And
and
we
beach sand. So.
we let the property go.
Yeah, and we shouldn't do that. I think we should do this, but if people are going to let it lie there undeveloped and unused, I think it's unfair to the taxpayers to not collect taxes on that if we're not going to develop it, in which case, why do we have it?
Yep.
So.
When do you suggest that we do these tours?
So that's a good question. I would try to do them before the Board of Finance engages on this, and maybe even before the Board of Selectmen. So sometime in January. I know that's
Bundle up.
Bundle up, but the fact is that the members of the Board of Selectmen will want to see this, and that's where the first votes are.
Yep,
And then Board of Finance is after that, then RTM. And so getting a tour down there where everybody can see this at once, I think will really, really help the presentation of that project.
So we should get that scheduled up quickly.
I
Yeah,
would pick a Saturday in January or early February, and let's try to get this on the calendar sooner.
Okay.
Let's you and I touch base
Yep.
about that and get Linda's help. She'll get that set up. I think this will be very valuable. Picture's worth 1,000 words. And by the way, members of the public could come on that as well. It'll be just like school tours. Come on if you want to be part of that and hear what's said for sure.
Yep, and Adele, of course, your folks would be welcome. You participated in our team tours, but I know you've got new members of your,
She's got boots too. She can come.
yeah.
So then, if we go through, we have at Pear Tree, we included in the budget again in here. Don't let the number freak you out too much. We put in 10 million. We do have an estimate that is more around 6.9. However, knowing that things have been coming in higher, we thought it was better to put it in on the high side. By the time we go through this, hopefully we'll actually have bids back, and we will have a firm number that will be less than that.
And Adele had asked about timing.
Yes.
So Dan Biggs did submit the application to P&Z in the past week.
Yep.
He had confirming that it's in.
Yes.
So,
I
think
dropped
it's on
off.
the docket for
yes, so
January.
Jan, the discussion was, don't hold me there, I think, Jan, I want to say January 14th, it might be 15th, but it was right
It's a
around mid.
January meeting, I
It's
think.
Yeah, it was mid-January. It would be multiple meetings, as you know, P and Z, it's never one night, so it would go over the course of several meetings, so
I think approval anticipated for February sometime.
maybe late February, and then
Then we could go out to bid.
if we were to receive approval, then it would go out to bid sometime after that.
I noticed you didn't put the priority number down against that.
Yeah, I missed that, that's all. I mean, I think that goes back into developing our infrastructure and everything. I mean, I would think
It's
it's
from
a
the
one.
master
but
plan.
Yeah.
It's from the
I would
master
think, yeah.
plan, so, I would think that was a one.
I would think that would be a one. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Right.
As part of the
Actually, we should
application,
be-
Jen and I were able to submit a number of, photographs and videos from various incidents, which are fairly compelling.
Yeah, it's concerning. I mean, this is not a town asset that we want to lose. It's been made clear to us by engineers and others who pay attention to this from a technical standpoint that the asset is at risk, and it's time to take action to protect it. So let's see what let's see how the process unfolds. We may need to have a similar type tour or presentation for Pear Tree Point. I know Craig and others have made, I think, a pretty compelling presentation about this in the past, but it's been a while. And so I think having something that integrates the three components of this, which are raising the parking lot and making some changes to available parking and the beach itself, the boat ramp, and then the dredging around the boat club, to take a look at all three of those things and have representatives from, for example, the boat club in the discussion at the beach and saying, here's the boat ramp and why this is a problem and why we need to fix it.
Yeah.
I think that'll help as well, just like Wheat Beach.
Yeah, and a couple things. One, I mentioned OPC today. Jim Cameron was able to pull out for me the video from the December 2022 presentation to the Board of Selectmen, right after we got the CTD approval. Dan and Craig made a presentation in that discussion when he pulled the clip for me. It was over an hour, so it was quite detailed. And Jen, I sent that to you, and you were going to
Yes, I
post
got to
that.
get it posted.
So we can get that posted on our website. That would be a resource that people could go back and review.
That's a good idea. If you wouldn't mind sending that, I'd like to forward that to a few other boards and individuals.
Okay.
Let's just start to get that out and say,
Yep.
before we have round two on all this, if you could look at this video,
Watch it,
that'll
yeah.
get up to speed right from where we were earlier in the project.
That would be good. And then I know I mentioned to you, John, that I did have a good conversation with the Commodore of the Darien Boat Club, brought him up to speed where we were, that we're planning to go forward, et cetera, to get them into the loop and part of the conversation. So we had a good conversation. So that will be our first quarter project, is working that through the approval process.
So then after that, it's really more equipment type stuff. There's a small capital, which we do, I guess, every year. That's $5,000. We do have in there a replacement loader with some attachments. That comes in at $107,700. Accessible mats for beaches, so this would be at both Pear Tree and Weed Beach that we talked about last time, and it would help so that
Wheelchair access to the
people,
water.
wheelchair access to the water, as well as anybody, it can help make it easier to walk down there, people with strollers, anything. So I think that's an important piece, making everything more accessible. We have a log grapple, which could be used for both the skid steer and the loader. A lot of this is stuff that would be used for, cleanups with whether there's storms, whether it's logs, trees, sand, snow, all that. We then have the financial sustainability strategy.
Why don't you just run
So-
through that again
Yep.
for everybody?
So that's $36,100 is the price we got. So that is, basically it would be having a consultant come and work with not only the department, but the commission. We would be pulling all sorts of information from us, so it captures our real expenses, and our revenues. So it would go as in-depth as taking our soft costs, so everybody's time, we could take in overhead, we could do debt service, however far we want to go with it, to see what our true costs are. So, for example, if 5% of my time is spent on different programs or overseeing different things, that can all be calculated out. So it pulls all of that together. The other big piece of this is something, and where you all would really play a role, is figuring out sort of, it's our continuum, right? So it's the decision as to how much cost recovery do we think we should be getting for various types of activities. So one would be, say, for open park spaces. You wouldn't necessarily expect to charge for that. That would be something kind of covered for, through tax dollars. So that would be at the bottom, and that would be zero cost recovery. And then as things go upwards, as they become more, the benefit is more individualized versus more community-wide, the amount of cost recovery goes up. So you would say, I'll just use an example because one here isn't coming to me, but so for example, when I was in Westport, we had boat slips at the marina. So if you had a boat, obviously you're keeping anybody else. It's the same kind of thing as if you do a park permit or something like that. So you're keeping anybody else from using that spot. So you then should pay the full 100% cost and cover that expense to maintain that, because nobody else can use it while you're doing it. However, if we do a program which is an introductory sports camp type of program, and we want to get more kids involved, now you have sort of a greater benefit. Now it might be 40% that we're looking for. So all that gets kind of talked through, and you would get led through that, and we determine, so that would create sort of what the strategy and the policy is going to be. And then there's also a piece of it, which is sort of a software piece where it takes all of our data, and it'll spit out for us. So for tennis lessons, you're charging this much, these are your expenses, you're only recovering 50%, and you're supposed to be at 80%. So you'll see that difference, and then we can actually go in and play with it, and you can figure out, okay, if we charge, instead of $50, we charge $60, where do we fall? Or do we need to increase the number of participants to reach that? Or do you get some sort of sponsorship to offset it? So there's different ways that you can work to calculate that out, but it will show us really what we're spending and what we're bringing back in. I mean, I think just from my cursory review here and of not looking at fees in a long time, I think there's probably a lot to be gained from it, and I think it would probably recover the cost of doing this within a year or two, I would assume, when you spread it out over our entire.
What's the value of having a consultant come in and methodologically look at all this versus relying a little bit on intuition based on our perspectives on the programs, benchmarks from other towns in terms of what they charge for similar services, your experiences in Westport, and taking a go of that ourselves, as opposed to getting a modestly expensive professional to come in and do this? Why is that important?
Well, I think part of it is because part of what comes with it is that whole tool,
The software
the
program.
software piece of it. So, I mean, that's not my, I can't create that system, because it's going to pull everything and calculate out all that data and compiles it.
Well,
Right ahead.
you just mentioned the cost per person for the field usage. So you had that number.
That was a very rough estimate,
Okay.
just based on,
But
okay,
that's the kind of thing the consultant is.
it can do things like that, but it'll be much more, I'm sure the cost is actually far more than $38 a person, because that didn't take into account, I mean, all I did was look at I average staff salaries for the parks guys and the work that they do. I took what we spent on seed, fertilizer, any of those kinds of things. They mow in extra, that's, the reason I say the staff is because for fields, we mow 2 to 3 times a week, where if it was just an open park, we'd mow once a week. So I did those extra times. So it's just rough. That did not include any of my time, any of Sandy's time, any of the cost for our gas on equipment, anything having to do with equipment for it. So there's a lot more that would get pulled into it than from what I
And
did.
you're suggesting that that knowledge will pay for itself within a year or two?
Yes.
Because we'll raise the fees to address it.
Yes, or we'll look at that and say, how else can we cut costs to do it? You know what I mean? Most likely, it's going to be fees, but it will also, it's a way to justify the fees that you are charging, because you can actually say, this is what our actual expense is, rather than just, well, I think,
Right.
Anecdotally.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think looking at some of what our competitors do, you do want to do that to some extent as well, which I did a little bit of here. But to go solely on that, because they might not be charging the right amount either. So, but really, I think part of it, the main part of it to me is the software piece of it.
That's something that we would end up subscribing to subsequent engagement.
It depends. If you want, there are things that you can do later times that you can do a yearly refresh or not do it. That would be up to us if we wanted to do that. Once we have that tool, it's called I don't remember what they call it, but some sort of, I think, pricing tool, we would have that, and we could probably just do a lot of that ourselves.
Did you use that in Westport or something?
Yes,
similar?
and I use these people, this consultant.
Okay, high value add, works great,
So-
game changer type,
Yeah, no, I think it was really important. I think it was a good exercise and everything, and trying to get the mindset, but having that tool, so now every year you upload your information and the revenues and the expenses, and you can
It helps
calculate it out.
optimize all of that.
It helps optimize that, and again, I think because we got a lot of pushback of, where are you getting these numbers from? Right, so it was all like, you think it feels like, that feels like a good number. This way you have the data to back it up.
Yeah, I think it's appealing. Jen talked about this when she interviewed, and I remember at the time Kate and Jen C and all we all perked up and whatever, because, I've certainly felt over the years, how you feel that we're just sort of, this fee feels about right or whatever,
Yeah,
but
it's like, okay,
with
might as
not a
well do
lot
$5.
behind it. And I think as our facilities, the demands on them going to be greater, we see more subscriptions to what we do. Really, we have to get the balance between what should be covered by the taxpayer in general and what should be a user fee, and what's that continuum. And I think it would help us put an ongoing discipline around that and around the philosophies around that. So say, okay, these type of programs, we want 50% recovery. These, as Jen said, it really should be 100%. You're taking up the paddle hut for 2 hours and nobody else can go and sit there. You've got to cover our costs. And right now, we don't have the information. I think for Jen to try to build it with everything else we're talking about on her plate potentially, with all of these projects and everything, I think would be challenging.
What kind of rough, tough cost split, like when you look at a $36,000 line item, like how much is the consulting and how much is the tech? Is it 30 and 5? Is it half and half? Like what?
No, it was like 30, what did I say? This is 36 one? I think it was 31 was the main thing, and then it was like around 4 or something, I think, for that tool.
Yeah. And do they
that
help
we
you
would have.
in year 2 and 3, like when or are you kind of rolling your own?
You can, or you can have, which would not be in this budget cycle, they can do, again, for an additional fee, help you and, come back and do a reassessment and things like that. So and those were, I think, around 7,000, something like that.
Not a ton of time, but I'd love to, like, the fact that you used it before and it's worked, it changes everything for me.
That's very helpful.
Right,
Yeah.
and so, like, rather than, this felt like a consulting engagement that's useful, like the first time you read it, and it
Right, and it goes
ends
and
up on a
sits there.
shelf somewhere, right? So that changes it for me, but I'd love any comments that you have, in particular, in year one, did it drastically shift things? You can tell from looking at this that we're vastly overcharging for some things and undercharging for others, and they're subsidizing each other, and that's fine.
Right.
But did it totally level set and equalize all that, and give you those insights?
Again, some things are going to be multi-year, even that you might see, oh gosh, we're really undercharging this, and well, we're going to phase it in, right? So it will be a multi-year thing, and that's a decision that we want to make, but we don't want to have sticker shock, right? Which is something that I suggested maybe we want to do with the sports groups, right? So you can do it that way. I think one of the big things that it really does is it took into account things that we never thought of. Debt service. If you want to know how much we actually spend on paddle courts, do you think we're ever talking about the $20,000 a year that we're paying for 3 years? Because we have to pay that off.
Each annual sticker fees, if all of a sudden we've spent
Right.
$10 million
So
to
now we
redo
might
Weed
want to
Beach.
increase the fees because now, well, okay, and, so that's, now again, because it's an open facility, it gets very intricate, so that's why I'm trying not to make it too crazy, but I think it will definitely, I think it's an eye-opening experience and does help to do what you were saying, kind of even things out. Now, if there was stuff that people were paying for and it was above the percentage that we didn't drop the fee, right? You keep that fee the same, and over time it will catch up. But I think it does help give the justification for why you would do it.
So it doesn't predict anything, it gives you current figures? Given all the potential influx of new residents, would it be able to predict
No, because
fee
it
increases or anything?
No, because it bases it on
What you currently
what you're
have?
using and what you're charging and what you're selling, for lack of a better term. Now, you might be able to say, so it doesn't take into account really your population, what might you be able to get. However, that might be something that you can extrapolate from it. Okay, well, now we could add 4 more classes to this because we have more people that are interested in it, and so there may be ways we can try to incorporate some of that too.
Well, we know there's 600 new apartments, so we can assume we're going to sell at least 600 more resident stickers or
right.
whatever, and how does that then
Right,
translate
so that's
across the
something,
cost?
right, that we can throw in there to see if we wanted it to be at 50%, well, but if we sold an extra 300, well, then we can keep the fee as is,
Yeah.
right, because we're selling more. Or there's also the part of, well, now the demands are going to be higher, so we're
Yeah.
going to need more staffing, or there's more wear and tear on the facilities. So there's more
Bathrooms being
maintenance,
cleaned, yeah.
more of that, so those costs go up, so it kind of
Is there a website we can look at?
you know what I should do, and I think I
You
said
can
I would
just
do it the
send it
last
to
time. I
us.
can send you the proposal too, so you
Okay.
see it, because that would be something that will go to as part of the
Okay,
backup for the,
just to educate ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
yeah,
would be
because it
great.
goes into some information.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's just a lift gate for 5,800. And then I did also put in here a portable sound system, based on some conversations that we had had. So we have a couple of systems, but the one that we have that is larger, oftentimes doesn't get used too much because it's a more intricate, more involved system. It's got a mixer, it's got all these things that you have to put together.
Was it the wreath ceremony over the weekend?
That's the one that was at the wreath ceremony. So that one was better than the one that often gets used, which is a smaller system.
Which one was at the Tilly Pond holiday?
That was the bigger system.
Okay.
So it's better, but again, it's also more issues with weather and things like that because of the setup. This system I looked at a lot of different places, especially when I was at NRPA, all the vendors, and this one is really good. It's very simple. So the other piece of this was, like, I had to have a staff person come to be at that event to make sure you could use it, because it's not something that I think we would ever want to, not that we lend it out, but, you know, in certain instances, if some town group was using something, we could let them use it, or another department or something like that. This system is simple, it's wireless, it's got Bluetooth, you can set it up so you can spread it out. So like at Tilly, we're a little bit constrained because you're on wires and where you can put things, so you could spread it out.
Yeah, and it
so
was
you
a
can-
problem because some people could hear and other people couldn't.
Right, so there, it's a bit of a better system, and again, it's simple. You put it up and you kind of push the button, and there's still things that you can do to it, but you don't have to do all these different setups and things. So,
Yeah, so I hate spending money on this stuff. I would just point to how much things have changed in this room because of better audio equipment, clearer microphones, clear speakers. Everybody can hear, both on TV and in person. And for all these events, if you have a speaker or an announcer or just want to move people to one spot, being able to speak where everyone clearly understands you is, we have to have this. It'll change things if we can have a simple system people can rely on.
so, unless we have other questions,
It
that's
sounds like that should be a 1. You have that as a 2 now.
well, that's based on the little,
The matrix,
The little
which is
matrix
health and
thing.
safety or infrastructure.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
so,
Right.
Now, this is for personal sanity, so.
So mental health.
Our first selectman's mental sanity.
Blast of cold air.
Chargeable, one of those chargeable ones. that you
yes,
have
it's
to have it in your-
chargeable, yes,
So
so,
there's a very important thing that technology hasn't solved is remember to plug it in, because we have one of those great systems.
But you
and
don't
every
charge it.
time we go to use it, somebody forgot to charge it.
right.
So
But yeah,
there's
that's
no
the
check
other
for
thing,
that.
it is off a battery, so you don't have to rely on an outlet or
Yeah.
anything like that either, so.
21st century problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any other questions on the proposed capital budget? Okay, then the resolution is resolved, the Parks and Recreation Commission approves the proposed Parks and Recreation fiscal year 26 capital improvement plan as proposed. Do we have a, Cindy, second? Terry? All in favor? Okay, good. Thank you for all your hard work on that, Jen. I know it's been a real slog
It's not
this year. I know, it's not done, I know, and it has many
A
hoops.
lot behind the
Many
scenes still
hoops.
being done, but
Many hoops
yes.
to go through. As I mentioned, Jen and I aren't going to do full reports tonight, just to get everybody out of here at an early hour. But I did want to just make just a few very short comments. One bit of news hot off the press from John today was that Jen Chernesky has been officially appointed as our town administrator, replacing Kate Bush, who
Today was
we
her
all knew
first
left.
day.
And today was her first. I think she was appointed last night, and today was her first day. So she's been co-acting along with Susan Barksdale, but she is officially in the position now. So we'll be, working closely with her, or continue to
What's her
work
last
closely.
We're going to,
Charneski.
Charneski, yeah, we're going to launch an effort to find a new director of finance. Actually, that process will start after the first of the year, but we'll try to move that along expeditiously as well, because she's still doing both jobs.
Right, so she's still doing both jobs. But I now call them Jen with one N and Jen with two N's.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So-
I did learn that early on.
Yes,
Yes.
our Jen,
At least there's some distinction, although that probably makes it worse.
yes,
so.
our Jen reports directly now to Jen. Chernesky. So she's in our chain in terms of, and she will be the next person to, once the budget is submitted, the town administrator takes the first cut at the budget and can and usually does make some kind of changes and eliminations, and then it'll go to the selectmen from there.
Jennifer will propose that to our board.
Right, so.
Jen.
anyway. Jen. But anyway, so she will be very much part of our activity, so I did want to let you all know that, since that was new today, and I thought that was important for you to know. I mean, other than that, I really just want to, thank, Jen this year, all the hard work you had to do getting up to speed, getting all of this done, first 6 months. It's been a lot, all the events that you guys put on. Thank Jim Coughlin, who filled in for the first, really, from January to, May, while Tamara was also on maternity leave, and he really stepped up and helped us keep things together. It was, thinking back on it, was like, whoa. Those were hard 5 months. Tamara, of course, who keeps us all in order and in line. And, Cassie for running some really fabulous events this year. The hockey event in the summer that came together in a matter of weeks.
Huge fun. flawless
Huge fun.
execution.
The tree lighting, the old-fashioned hall of that, all of these events that, the band concert down at Weed Beach this summer was fabulous. So really just thank all the entire staff for me. And just want to thank our retired commissioners, Kara Bonesack, Kathy Mulrow-Petey, and Susan Daly, of course, who left us at during periods of the year. And then welcome our new members, Ed, Cindy, and Terry, and thank everybody for their work this year.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Parks and Rec has real oversight over all our parks and the number of people who enjoy not just our park facilities, but our events and all of that stuff. You guys charter and enable all of that, and I just thought this year went exceptionally well in that regard. Every event that I went to in my first year in this office, everybody had a great time. They enjoyed the spirit, the camaraderie of the community. I specifically mentioned in my State of the Town address how important that is. That's good for all of us living here. I think it really is tremendous to have a place that you can go almost all the time to go do something cool that's facilitated by this commission. So I just appreciate you guys for what you do. It's a pain to be on any kind of board or commission, believe me, I know, but you're doing God's work, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I want to also thank you for your really active engagement in the last year.
And charming and entertaining.
There you go. You get to our meetings, and we've had a lot of good meetings and whatever. And Adele, also thank you for your partnership.
Yeah, Adele, she's a stalwart, right?
Yeah.
She's always paying attention to this stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
That's good, keep doing it.
But she's good, keeps me informed about things that I might have picked up on. She's always good about letting me know, you might want to watch this meeting. Did you hear this or whatever? So thank you for that. So that's what I had. No official report tonight, but I just wanted to wish everybody great holidays and thank you for all your hard work this year.
And if I can just chime in too, to just thank all the different commission members too that have helped out, because you've jumped in at some of our different events, and it's helpful, and it's nice to see you there, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Nobody? Amy? That's it. All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
With that, I have 3 hours worth of comments.
Yeah. Thank you, TV 79.